Hello, today I'll be doing a crystal experiment. For this experiment, I'll use a triangle beaker, and 100 grams of Epsom salt, and some food coloring. Oh, and 100 milliliters of warm water. So first I'll pour the warm water into the beaker, and now I'll add the Epsom salt in gradually, and then I'll mix it till it dissolves. Since most of the salt particles are now dissolved, I'll add the food coloring. And now we'll stir. And now I'll leave the beaker undisturbed and let it cool off so it can form the crystals. So what happens in this experiment is when you mix warm water with Epsom salt, the heat helps dissolve a large amount of salt. And that creates a supersaturated solution. And as we know, a supersaturated solution means that the water is holding more salt than it normally could at room temperature. And as the solution cools, it sits still without any disruption. It can no longer keep all that salt dissolved. So the extra salt starts to come out and spring and form solid crystals. Here, solid crystals. And if we zoom into the molecular level, the salt molecules are floating around in the water and bumping into each other. And most of the time they separate again, but sometimes two molecules stick together just long enough to attract a third one, then a fourth one, and slowly a crystal begins to grow. The more solute you add into the solvent, the faster the process happens. So now I'll be talking about solubility. Solubility is basically a measure of how much of a substance can dissolve in a liquid. So when something dissolves, it breaks down into tiny particles that spread out evenly through the liquid, and that forms a solution. And a solution is made of two parts, the solute and the solvent. The solute is the substance being dissolved. So for example, salt, borax, sugar. Solvent is the substance that's doing the dissolving, and most of the time it's water. The solubility of substance depends on three things: temperature, type of solvent, because some things dissolve in water and others in oil, and third thing is the pressure. We'll be talking about saturation. Saturation is the point where a solution can't dissolve any more solute. It's like the water becomes completely full of dissolved particles. So in my experiment, as I kept adding Epsom salt to the warm water, the water eventually reached its limit. It became saturated. Any extra salt just stayed at the bottom as the solution couldn't hold anymore. And now, supersaturation. Supersaturation happens when a solution contains more dissolved solute than it normally can at that temperature. And in my experiment, the warm water dissolved a large amount of Epsom salt. But when the solution cooled, it became supersaturated, meaning it was holding more salt than it could keep dissolved. Because of this unstable state, the extra salt began to come out of the solution and form crystals. And for the final topic, crystallization. Crystallization is the process where dissolved particles come out of a solution and form solid crystals. In my experiment, once the supersaturated Epsom salt solution cooled, it couldn't hold all the dissolved salt anymore. So the extra salt began to attach to tiny surfaces in the beaker, forming seed crystals, and over time, more particles joined these seeds.
Miss Jackson.